All right, so the book that I chose, the title is The Mermaid's Purse by Patricia Polacco. So The Mermaid's Purse is a wonderful book with mystical undertones that's loosely based on the author's own grandmother and personal heroine, Estella. So the story goes that the main character, Stella, was born in a thunderstorm, but she was protected by a mermaid's purse, which is basically kind of like a birth membrane. Because of this, it's kind of treated as a miracle, and the midwife proclaims that Stella will be showered with blessings like a spring rain. When Stella starts falling in love with reading and collecting her books, they eventually overflow her family's farmhouse. The community sees this, comes together, and builds her own personal proper library, and she names it the Mermaid's Purse. And she shares her books with the entire community and is very generous. When a tornado destroys Stella's library and her books, the whole community comes to her aid and helps her out in a very heartwarming finale. So this very heartwarming tale has expressive pencil and marker illustrations and covers various themes of family, community, and a love of reading. Some questions that you can ask your students before and after reading. Before, you could ask them how they would feel if there were no books to read. And have you ever been near a terrible storm and what happened? I particularly chose this book because I live in Texas, Houston, Texas, and we have gone through, we have transplants here from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. A lot of Louisiana people moved to Houston, and also we obviously have gone through Hurricane Harvey, so there are some connections that students probably have, even if it's just from their parents' perspectives. They may have experiences with big hurricanes and big storms. After reading, you could ask them what they thought of the name of Stella's library, and if they had their own library, what would they name it, and why would they name it that way? The book and build activity that goes along with this book asks students to work together in small groups to discuss and research 4 to 5 ways that our school could come together to get at least 100 books for a community or school that doesn't have books of their own for whatever reason. It doesn't need to be that they had a natural disaster, just maybe they are an underserved community. They would work together in their group to create a Novio presentation, a PowerPoint, a Google Slides presentation, or a video that would describe their methods for gathering those books. So the example that I have here, I put together a fairly simplistic student presentation. I kind of tried to channel the ways that my students would put something together, thinking of my population in my classroom. I would talk to them about the use of color, the kind of aspects of a professional presentation, that the font is easy to read, there are images, it's engaging in some way or another, so that, maybe they can persuade their audience of their peers to look into their ways of gathering books. So this is the presentation by Jack, Sarah, Ahmed, and Kirsty. So the first option that they might think of is donation boxes around the school to bring in, for students to bring in like new, gently used books that they don't read anymore. The second option that they may think of is writing letters to authors to ask for donations of copies of books. I would try to steer them toward, if we were to really do this, I would steer them toward local authors. I feel like kind of the bigger names, John Green is usually very responsive to people, but at the same time, he may get bogged down with emails and letters and things like that. So maybe they could reach out to some more local Houston or Texas authors. The third option I thought they might think of is an Amazon wish list for books. They could come together with some good titles, send the list out to local businesses, maybe through their parents or other businesses that they frequent, to see if they want to purchase some of the books on the list. And then lastly, they might think of, using as with an adult, looking for posts on those neighborhood social media websites like Facebook Marketplace, Nextdoor, eBay, things like that, and have an adult go pick those books up, or they could make their own post asking for those free books, requesting those books, and have the collection spot be the library or something like that. So again, I tried to make this PowerPoint kind of more simplistic, depending on the time that you would allot students to research and to put together the presentation. It would just really depend on how much time you give them to make that presentation, but I leaned more towards simplistic with use of color and images to make it professional looking, but at the same time, keep it kind of realistic to what kids can do. So in my future library, my plan is to work with older students in a middle or high school. So I would keep the Mermaid's purse because I thought that was a very sweet story, but I would also maybe pair it with an article about real communities that have survived these big natural disasters in Texas or Louisiana, kind of focusing on these two states since we're very close to Louisiana. And I would also ask them a little more guiding questions about why a library is such an important part of a community or a school. What do libraries do for communities? They give you a gathering place. They give people a space to come together and learn together. Obviously, I'm still going to have them create the presentation, sharing their ideas, and maybe I would have the students vote on some of the best ideas that they heard and actually put it into action. A possible extension could be discussing actually how to get supplies other than books to some of these communities. If they need, canned food or diapers or, just other like health supplies or things, what's a way that we can help these communities more that are in need for some reason or another. So that is my book and build activity. Thank you so much.